It is time again for a horror movie. Today, the story continues with the American horror series, Survival Game. Loomis works as a tester for a horror game company. His usual work is quite enjoyable. He just plays games to help the company test for product vulnerabilities. However, the games he tests have a horror rating of 5 stars. From time to time, there are jump scares with ghosts appearing suddenly. These can startle most people. Tonight, he is also entrusted by the company to test a new product called Survival. The game is set in a manor shrouded in dark clouds. This European medieval architecture, combined with the dilapidated interior of the house, creates an extremely unsettling horror atmosphere. It is said that this game is adapted from a real event. At that time, there was a noblewoman named Elizabeth. To stay young forever, she captured nearly 100 young girls, feeding on their blood. Some say she is a murderer with unusual fetishes. Others say she is a complete vampire. The developers of this game also recreated the scene from that time one-to-one. Soon after, Loomis sees many girls' victims in a display window. However, the noblewoman in the middle and the attire of those around her appear out of place. Loomis initially does not pay much attention. He continues to explore the mysteries of the game within the old mansion. But as he passes through a corridor, he suddenly hears light footsteps coming from behind him. The elegantly dressed noblewoman, Elizabeth, appears behind Loomis. The skill bar has not even started filling when the boss appears. Loomis frantically presses the movement keys and jumps around the house. He passes one exit after another, but wave after wave of monsters block his path. Loomis has no choice but to hide in a nearby room. What appears before him is a gory scene. This room is Elizabeth's nightmare. As the arriving Elizabeth shoves Loomis down, his neck hangs on a pre-prepared iron hook. Game over. The game ends. But at this moment, Loomis stares blankly at the computer screen. It seems his soul was also taken by Elizabeth during the game. After smoking a cigarette to calm down, Loomis immediately calls his good friend Hutch. He says the game he is testing is too terrifying. He invites Hutch to come to his house and experience it. Hutch gets excited after hearing this and readily agrees. He is also a planner at a game company. He has a strong interest in horror games. He hangs up the phone. Loomis clearly has not recovered from the game. He leans back in his chair with his neck tilted back. Suddenly, a clap of thunder sounds in the sky, reminding Loomis that it is late and he should go back to his room rest. On his way upstairs, he vaguely hears from his roommate's room some moans and screams. Loomis nervously pushes open the door with concern. Unexpectedly, it is his roommate and his girlfriend playing a two-person role-playing game. Amidst his roommate's scolding, Loomis returns to his room and falls asleep peacefully. But unexpectedly, this game has a strong lingering effect in Loomis's subconscious and every cell of his body. Its name, Survival, is etched. Waking up from a nightmare, Loomis is drenched in sweat and comes downstairs for some water. A blurry shadow watches him from behind. Because Loomis has developed the skill of pinpointing sounds in the game, he quickly hears the person's footsteps and breathing. Loomis yells into the kitchen. At first, he thinks his roommate is playing another trick. But clearly, it is not them this time. With Loomis's face full of shock, a chain from behind wraps around his neck. At the same time, a dark figure appears, pushes him from the second floor, and eliminates him. Afterward, Hutch receives news of Loomis's death, and his mood instantly plummets. Because they are childhood friends who grew up together, they even share a life or death bond. At the memorial service, a woman photographs Hutch's inexpressible expression. She hands the photo to Hutch, saying there are many crying faces at the funeral. Although Hutch does not cry, he looks the most sorrowful. The two of them quickly hit it off and start chatting. At this moment, Loomis's younger sister walks over. She hands a briefcase to Hutch. Inside is the game disc for Survival. His younger sister says the game is too violent and her parents will throw it away. She also says her deceased older brother would want Hutch to have it. The scene changes. At Hutch's home, His few close friends arrive. Also present is Abigail, the blonde girl he met at the memorial service. They are all here at Hutch's home to play the horror game called Survival. Initially, Hutch thinks this is inappropriate and risky because this is the last thing Loomis did before he died. However, Hutch's friend Phineas really wants to play around. He is a somewhat extreme gaming fanatic. For this hobby, he even specifically opened an internet cafe with his younger sister October. Phineas believes that if they can play this survival game to completion, it is also a way to indirectly honor Loomis' spirit. Therefore, they form a group and come to Hutch's home. With the assembly master Swinks tinkering, they quickly sit in front of 5 large screens. Meanwhile, Hutch's Miller, who is 1,000 miles away, also registers an account and arranges to play with everyone. Then, as everyone eagerly customizes their characters, a gruff voice also narrates a monologue, introducing to the players the game's background, stating that in this manner called Grudge, a female demon named Elizabeth exists. Players must wipe out her puppet army. They also need to find Elizabeth to uncover the truth of the entire matter. The monologue also emphasizes that players must survive. At this moment, a female zombie covered in blood appears on the essential path to the manor. Hutch mercilessly shoots it dead with several crossbow bolts. Consequently, a rose drops as equipment on the ground. The game explains that whenever players encounter insurmountable difficulties, throwing a rose can turn danger into safety. Everyone quickly becomes familiar with the game's rhythm, killing enemies in all directions. But as they arrive at the central area of the manor, the number of zombies becomes uncontrollable. They have no choice but to hide inside the building and tightly close the doors. In the previous chaos, Miller accidentally gets separated from the main group. Hutch and his group arrive at a grand hall. Miller, on the other hand, arrives at a dark underground fortress. He then sees a room full of bloodstains, and a girl's roaring sound continuously emanates from it. Miller feels a bit scared. Hutch reminds him that if he cannot pass, he should quickly throw a rose down. As the rose lands, the roaring sound abruptly stops. However, this is the last rose Miller has. He tells everyone through the microphone that his location appears to be a torture chamber, full of bloodstains.
God damn it, man.
As Miller relaxes his guard, a woman in red pounces from behind and neutralized him with a knife. He judges it to be the Countess from the painting. Hearing this, Phineas immediately gets excited and wants to go to the torture chamber to deal with her. At this moment, Miller glimpses a dark shadow flashing past the doorway. He guesses it must be that damned security guard scaring people. Swink also seriously analyzes the situation. Swink seriously analyzes that perhaps playing games for too long causes one to see strange things. Afterwards, Miller temporarily logs off and leaves the company. But as soon as he leaves, the door he just locked strangely opens. Moreover, a buzzing vibration sound comes from inside. When Miller returns to the office and lies on the ground, he realizes the sound comes from the game controller he just used. With a loud scream from Miller, time quickly arrives at the next morning. Hutch, who just arrived at the company, is completely bewildered to see so many police officers. He wants to rush into the office, but a black detective stops him. Only from the detective does he learn that his boss has died. A sharp blade pierces his throat, and it is clearly a murder case. And inadvertently, Hutch also sees Miller lying dead on the table. Afterwards, they also hastily log into the game, seeing the exact same death method as Miller in reality. Everyone feels a chill down their spine and is greatly frightened. After a unanimous discussion among Hutch and the 3 others, they decide the game must be suspicious and absolutely cannot be played anymore. But at the same time, the game fanatic inside the room, however, enters the game interface after he learns about Loomis's and Miller's death methods. He becomes even more interested. But strangely, in the game, Phineas discovers a carriage crashing towards him. But the sound of the horse's neighing comes from behind him in the real world. He quickly pauses the game to listen carefully. Meanwhile, the group outside remembers Phineas is still playing. They quickly rush over, but when they run back into the house, Phineas lies motionless in front of the screen.
Oh my God. What are you doing, man?
I'm pulling this bitch. What's it look like, man?
After everyone unanimously objects, Phineas temporarily gives in and stops playing. But the truth is, as long as a player signs the agreement before entering the game, they no longer have a choice about whether or when to play. Then everyone starts doing their own thing. The man assembles computer parts as usual. Phineas installs a high-power sound system in his sports car. He prepares to go racing later. However, at this moment, everyone hears and sees some illusions. First, the man assembling the computer discovers a large amount of blood mysteriously appearing on the keyboard. October, who is wiping the drink machine, also glimpses a ghostly face appearing in the mirror behind her. Then, Hutch, who is washing up, his eyes instantly turn into a cataract-like appearance. Phineas, who is repairing his car, also hears the sound of horse hooves coming from behind him. At first, everyone thinks it is overwork and does not pay much attention. The cautious Hutch goes to a library again to look up information on these two murders and some rumors about Elizabeth. Only then does he discover that Miller's and Loomis's roommates' causes of death are exactly the same. Both are stabbed to death by a large pair of scissors and bled dry. Loomis's cause of death is due to a chain strangulation. It also matches the weapon that kills him in the game. After hearing the clues Hutch finds, everyone shudders involuntarily. October also tells the story about Elizabeth that her grandma tells her since childhood. Her Gru's manor. Elizabeth kidnaps hundreds of young girls and relies on drinking their fresh blood to stay young forever. And in the game, the reason why Elizabeth shatters whenever she encounters a mirror is also because this wicked woman dares not face her aging appearance. Finally, the local people also lock Elizabeth in the manor's tall tower and starve her to death. The scene shifts. Phineas, who is speeding outside, plays music and shouts loudly. But in the next second, the sky above his head suddenly becomes covered with dark clouds. Even the road also has an extra layer of thick white fog. Phineas subconsciously adjusts his rearview mirror. Unexpectedly, a little girl suddenly jumps out in front. Phineas, in a panic, sharply turns the steering wheel. He swerves the car into a nearby green belt. He gets out of the car and inspects the surroundings carefully. But no one appears on the road. Now the car mysteriously fails to start. He quickly calls Hutch, who is on the other side, telling him that he is stranded on a nearby road and asks them to hurry over.
Finn, you didn't die in the game, remember? I'll be right there.
That's right! I didn't die in the game, baby!
After realizing that he did not die in the game, Phineas's hanging heart drops significantly. However, at this moment, the quiet road again echoes with the neighing of horses, getting closer and closer. When Hutch and his group arrive at the destination, they see Phineas lying motionless in front of the sports car, dead. On his head, a dent also appears. It seems he suffered extremely severe trampling before his death. As police sirens successively sound, the police also arrive at the scene and begin their investigation. Hutch tells the detective next to him that the deaths of these friends are identical to the game they play. Although the detective promises Hutch that he will investigate, he also warns him that the next time he sees Hutch at a murder scene, he will arrest him. While the two are talking, the deputy behind them, out of curiosity, under Swink's guidance, also registers for the game. At the same time, he scoffs that there is nothing to be afraid of in a game. The deputy is about to have his head terminated by the torture device. Hutch, hearing the sound, quickly runs over and shuts down the computer.
Come on! I just think it would be better if no one plays.
Well, I guess I could see how at your tender age something like this game might put the scare into you. Come on.
The next day, when the deputy visits a game store for investigation, he learns that the game called Survival is still in beta testing and not yet released. Unable to find clues, the deputy drives away. Immediately after, he suddenly sees a girl appear in the backseat through the rearview mirror. In the blink of an eye, a torture device terminates his head, and he dies in the car. Meanwhile, a group of people, in order to find out the truth, arrive at Loomis's home from the beginning of the story. Hutch's idea is to find the address of the game developer and go there to understand the root of the matter. Soon, they find the company's address from Loomis's phone. It is on Cypress Street. 50 kilometers away from them. But as they pack their things and are about to leave, they find that the game called Survival is running on the laptop. All of them also state that they have not touched the computer. At this moment, October's game character appears on the screen. She is heartbroken because of her older brother Phineas's death, and she is smoking and walking outside. Suddenly, she sees a person, like an NPC from the game, appear in a renovated house nearby. October, without thinking, throws away her cigarette butt and walks in, picking up a hammer and 3 nails from the side. She previously consults a large number of ancient books. It is said that by inserting 3 nails into the corresponding positions on the deceased's face, one can control the deceased. However, the Elizabeth who appears is not her true self but her soul. So the nails naturally cannot be inserted into her body. During their escape, Elizabeth hooks October with an iron chain, hanging her in midair. When the 3 people hear the screams and rush over, October already has her throat slit and lies in a pool of blood. Afterward, Hutch and the others still proceed with their plan as usual, arriving at a place called Cypress Street. However, the place is completely silent. It does not look like a company at all. After the few people finish their exchanges, Hutch leads Abigail into the company. Swink, on the other hand, controls the computer and starts playing a survival game. Rather than letting fate be in the hands of demons, it is better to control one's own fate and defeat the demons. Hutch, who comes upstairs, finds that it is also deserted. The most common things are only those eerie doll figures. Hutch and Abigail also discover that the layout of this house is exactly the same as many places in the game. They use the phone, and guided by Swink, who is playing the game on the other side, they surprisingly find a cemetery that is completely identical to one in the game. The cemetery stretches for more than 10 miles. And not far away, an ancient tall tower appears in Hutch's line of sight. It turns out that this is not a game company at all. Instead, it is Elizabeth's Gruach Manor. At this moment, her true form should also be located inside this tall tower. However, before entering, Swink also emphasizes to Hutch and the others to bring gasoline and nails used to beat demons. If this trick with nails does not work, then they should ignite the gasoline and burn Elizabeth's true form to ashes. Because fire also has a deadly effect on demons. But as soon as he finishes explaining, the handle in the car suddenly starts to shake violently. Immediately after, the car door also closes tightly, locking Swink outside. He nervously stares at the computer screen. The paused game surprisingly starts automatically. And in front of him, there is also a carriage about to run over Swink. Having no other choice, he first dives into the jungle in front of him and runs wildly. Elizabeth, on the other hand, drives the carriage, chasing closely behind him. In his panic, Swink falls into a pile of weeds. And around the weeds, roses are blooming. When Hutch arrives, the screen, however, shows Swink is already dead. They are still one step too late, even though they are extremely heartbroken. They still have to quickly prepare the tools and set off to take down Elizabeth. This boss. But precisely at this moment, the neighing of horses again rings out in the distance. Elizabeth has already come chasing after them. At the critical moment, Hutch timely opens the tall tower's gate, but he himself does not go inside. Instead, he turns around, lowers his head, and takes out a rose from his bag. He wants to test if this thing works in the real world. Afterward, the two then begin to search inside the tower. Meanwhile, many zombie puppets gather around Hutch and Abigail. They throw down roses one by one to avert danger. But as they run into a room, an iron door suddenly closes, locking Abigail inside and blocking Hutch outside. Abigail tells Hutch not to worry about her, to hurry to the tower's interior and find Elizabeth's true body. She says their time is running out. Helplessly, Hutch has no choice but to leave and hands Abigail the last life-saving rose he has. Not long after, in a bedroom at the top of the tower, Hutch slowly pulls open the bed curtains and finally discovers Elizabeth lying inside. At this moment, Hutch sweats profusely and his heart races. He takes 3 nails from his bag and nails them onto Elizabeth's body one by one. After he finishes nailing them, Elizabeth strangely sits up from the bed. The 3 nails also fall out of her body one by one. Unexpectedly, this move turns out to be a way to summon a soul back into the host body. At the critical moment, Hutch picks up the mirror-like laptop in his hand.
And to see yourself grow old.
It won't break like the other ones. I think it's made of.
Elizabeth sees her own ghostly appearance and screams wildly. Hutch also seizes this opportunity and ignites the gasoline already spilled on the ground. Immediately, the room fills with flames. Elizabeth is also burned by the fierce fire and starts to shriek weakly. But at the same time, she also locks the room door. They trap Hutch inside with them. Luckily, as the big fire is about to burn over, Swink surprisingly kicks open the door and rushes over with a large bouquet of roses. Finally, the 3 of them complete the mission. They vanquish Elizabeth, who is in the high tower, and lift the curse. However, at the end of the movie, this game called Survival surprisingly becomes available in major game stores. When players recite the prayer from before entering the game, the curse becomes effective again, and Elizabeth also revives. She continues to welcome players' challenges.